good day in Jonesboro, Arkansas, and welcome to Let's Talk Jonesboro. I'm Roy Oakert, and I'll be your host for this edition of Let's Talk Jonesboro. And our guest today is Jim Stark, who is local director for Vector Disease Control. Welcome to the program, Jim. Your company has been working for Jonesboro for quite some time.
That's correct, Roy.
You're under a contract with the city for 6 years, I believe.
Yes. First of all, I appreciate you asking me to come down and give a little information on what's going on and what we plan to do this year. We've actually been in Jonesboro. Last April was our 20th year, and they re-signed several years back for a 7-year contract, and I think there's 1 or 2 years left in that contract.
Yeah. There was 1 year that the city did something else, and that didn't work out so good. The mosquitoes got so bad that people had you back in a hurry, didn't they?
That was a time I'd like to forget. They hired another company to come in, and they were a little cheaper. And I think the people and the government of Jonesboro saw what we can do and can do, as opposed to someone else coming in here that really had no idea of the rice field mosquito and the Anopheles, how bad they can actually get, and they do get.
Well, last year, Jim, was a year of low populations for mosquitoes, at least for most of the summer, as I recall, and not as bad as it usually is in my part of the city anyway.
Well, that's a compliment to us. I think what helped us a little bit was our actual rice production went in a little late, and that kind of got us through the 4th of July. That's when most people are out, out and about with the fireworks and stuff like that. So our normal hatch on the Anopheles mosquito, which is the rice field mosquito, is usually right around the 4th of July. And last year I think we were short a couple of weeks there. So we kind of got, beyond the 4th of July and all the events. And people in Jonesboro and other contracts that I oversee, they know they're going to be bad, especially after dark, but they know we're out there controlling them, and we're doing everything we can. So,
well, we're starting a little bit early this year because the city's a little concerned about a new threat from mosquitoes, and that's the Zika virus, which started in Central and South America and has spread to around some. The main problem, as I understand it, is it's linked to serious birth defects. Tell us a little bit about what the threat is there, what Zika is, and so on and
sure.
so forth.
The Zika virus, I'll give you a little history, was first discovered in 1947. It was discovered in Uganda, in the Zika forest, so therefore that's how it got its actual name, Zika. I think the first case was reported like 1952. That may be 1 or 2 years off. At present, it's mostly South America, Central America right now. People who visit in that area are bringing it back to the United States. As of the end of February, I think there's like 107 cases that have traveled down to South America and Central America, and they come back home with it. The main concern at present is that, like everyone knows, is the pregnant women. It can cause birth defects, a small head, brain damage, but the particular species which carries that Zika virus is called the Aedes aegypti. Fortunately, in the Arkansas Delta, we really do not have a great population of the Aedes aegypti. So that's going to help us a lot. Now, when you get further south, down along the coast of the United States, like Louisiana, Mississippi, yes, they do have aegypti.
Now that's a scientific name, but the nickname is Asian tiger,
Well,
is that right?
no, that's a totally, that's, the Asian tiger, or Aedes albopictus, is the Asian tiger, the mosquito.
Okay.
There's some discussion to where that particular species is able to transmit the virus at this time. Now, that being said, the Asian tiger, or albopictus, is in the Delta. No question about it. So it's something I keep up with just about every day, because there is, like I said, there is some question whether that particular species is able to carry that disease and transmit it from human to human. Okay. With that being said, we're, here in Jonesboro and my other contracts, we're not going to wait and see if it does. I'm not going to read one day, okay, yeah, it carries or has the potential to carry.
You're assuming that it does.
Just assuming it does, and actually, it's not any different from our regular mosquito control program. I know you're going to ask this, but the Asian tiger, or albopictus, is an artificial container breeder. Artificial containers means anything that's going to hold water that is artificially, like jars, cans, tires, bird baths, rain gutters, bottle caps, just anything that's going to hold water. The main concern for me would be tire piles. Here in Jonesboro and my other contracts will be tire piles. They are notorious for Aedes aegypti. Aedes albopictus. But that's why it's so important that I, as a mosquito control director, have to get the word out to the public that anything that holds water has to be dumped at least every 5 or 6 days. It absolutely has to now. Okay. Now I know that's a big task, because you have wheelbarrows and boats and anything that can fill up with water. And
something that has moving water to it, is that a threat, such as a little garden spring or something?
Not necessarily. It's got to be standing water, and like I said, it has to stand there for 5 or 6 days, or 6 to 7 days on the albopictus to hatch off. In my report to the mayor, that's going to be a daunting task. That's why it's going to be up to the individual homeowner to look around his property and see what he can do to dump the water. If it looks like it's going to hold water, turn it over. If you got a dog dish, dump it out every 5 or 6 days.
These are things that your crews can't really reach in a lot of cases.
If it comes to that, door to door, we may have to. Right now, I don't think so, but I can't see into the future, of course. But like if we go on service request, someone calls and says that, I have a mosquito problem. If my inspectors see something that's holding water, and especially if they see the larvae in there, if the homeowner is home, he'll go get that homeowner and say, hey, look, this is where some of your problem is coming from. And that educates, and that say, oh yeah, okay, I can dump that. So, but it's going to be something that we're going to have to watch closely. And as you well know, it changes every day. There's always, something else that could be transmitted this way or transmitted that way. But with that being said, the Zika virus is in the news, of course, but that doesn't mean that our other diseases are going to disappear. St. Louis encephalitis, West Nile, triple E encephalitis, EEE. So just because Zika's out in front right now, that's not going to make the other ones go away. And to tell you the truth, I'm more worried about St. Louis encephalitis and West Nile. Okay, as of right now.
And we're more likely to have that here, is that what you're saying?
We've been very fortunate here in Jonesboro with West Nile, and I don't. The best I can recollect, we might have had one case of West Nile that has been reported in Jonesboro in my 20 years here. Sometimes West Nile virus and Zika virus will go on because it's a flu-like symptom. You know, headache, aches and pains, nausea, and some people think they'll have the flu. They'll go to the doctor. It will be diagnosed as a flu when it could be West Nile. It just, you know, it all depends on the age and the health of the individual, how far it progresses.
Normally, you don't start your work to fight mosquitoes until April or so.
April 15th.
You're going to start earlier this year, is that right?
Our contract on paper is April 15th to October 15th. I've been speaking with the mayor and L.M. Duncan, and we're going to try to maybe start a little earlier, especially larviciding. Like I said earlier, probably concentrate on tar piles first and see. Now, this particular mosquito will not get active until temperatures get above 70 degrees or so and stay there for a number of days. So, but yeah, I'd like to get a jump on it just in case. I don't. Like I say, every day I find out something new about this virus, either good or bad news. And so we'll probably start a little bit earlier on the larviciding part of it. Yes, sir. And another thing, this particular mosquito, the Aedes albopictus, is only active during the daytime. So, so our spraying at night with our spray trucks and airplane will have absolutely no effect on her.
And you normally spray at night, don't you?
Yes. You could spray early in the morning for albopictus, and you can spray late in the evening for albopictus. The best way to control them is if you find the adults in the tar piles. Then you can go in with a backpack sprayer or a spray truck if it's accessible to that. So, and also our larviciding projects, which usually include throwing larvicide into a ditch or a slough or a swamp, will do no good on that particular species as well. So it's artificial containers, and I want everyone to know that you know you have to dump. And I know if you got a boat sitting in the yard or something like that, it's going to be hard to keep the water out unless you cover it, pull the plug out of it or something. But that's imperative. That has to be dumped.
But that's probably a good idea, regardless of what kind of mosquito you're
Sure,
talking about.
sure,
Right.
sure. That's even if we didn't have Zika virus, because the artificial container mosquitoes, they can spread St. Louis encephalitis and West Nile virus. So yeah, so if you dump your containers, yeah, you're doing real good.
So the temperature this winter has been relatively mild. We haven't had much snow, at least so far. It's not over yet.
No, it's not over yet.
Does that foretell a difficult year for mosquitoes?
Not really, Roy. Here in the Delta, what foretells our mosquito season is the rice fields. When the rice fields go to permanent flood, I mean, we're not, at this time, we're not talking about the Zika virus. We're talking about the Anopheles quadrumaculatus, which is the one that right after dark, they swarm you and all that stuff. But wet or dry, cold or hot, when the rice comes on board and goes to permanent flood, which is usually about mid-June, And if it's a dry summer, then you have to contend with irrigation, soybeans and corn, and that's just as bad.
Jim, part of your job is to get to the mosquitoes before they get to me. How do you do that? How do you go about trying to measure and determine in advance what's going on?
That is called mosquito surveillance. It'll start by actual larviciding. If we go into an area and find a lot of larvae, it depends what stage they're in. If we know they're fixing to hatch off in a day or two, we can plan that hatch off to send a spray truck in there. Okay? Now I'm talking about in-town stuff. We have light traps around the city. I think Jonesboro has 22 light traps. We run those twice a week. And the inspectors, they will collect the mosquitoes that's in that cup, bring them back to our office. I will count them and identify them, each species and how many. That gives me an idea, okay, I've got quite a few south of town, or I've got quite a few north of the bypass in this particular area. So that's how, and we send our spray trucks in there. Another way is by the public, people calling in and letting me know. I know they're there, but they're going to call, and that's okay. They're going to call and say, hey, I got mosquitoes here. So we'll send an inspector out to check it out, and a spray truck to spray around, or if he has to go in with a backpack, we can do that.
Well, when you discover somebody's got a mosquito problem on their property, what do you do then?
Okay, everyone that calls in, I think I'm proud to say that everyone that calls in will get a truck or an inspector out on their property. What we do is we'll send someone out and we'll look at it. Usually during the day, you're not going to find the Anopheles mosquito because it's inactive during the daytime. It's only active right at dark and early in the morning, and up to about 11 or 12 o'clock at night. So when the inspector goes out to a home, he'll look up under the eaves or in the barn or somewhere, and that's where they'll be harboring up during the daytime. So if he finds them, he sprays them with a backpack, or if he can get his truck in there, he sprays that. He'll also walk around to see if you have any artificial containers. And he will dump, he may dump them. If you're home, he'll probably come get you and show you what you've got. Ask him if it's okay to dump it. But if it's an old rotten pan that's been sitting out in the yard for a year and a half, and the water's in there, it looks like it's been there that long, he'll just kick it over. So, but that's how we do it. And like I said, last July, just to throw this out, last July we had over 400 service requests. That's including somebody wanting to be sprayed at night or come out and spray during the daytime around their house. 400, and every one of them were taken care of. So, so I'm kind of proud of that. Yeah. I mean, now that's not saying, you're going to call in and we're not going to miss you. But, because our telephone rings every 5 or 6 seconds during the summertime. It's just nonstop. Yeah.
Let's go back to the Zika virus a little bit. If we do have a problem with the Zika virus in the United States, and particularly in this area, what are some of the symptoms that are being caused when somebody contracts that virus? What's the thing we need to look for?
Well, naturally, the main concern will be pregnant women. That's something that remains to be seen. How they're going to cope with that, I don't really know. Individuals that contract Zika usually will start out with a rash on the neck, chest, arms. The rash will disappear, what I understand, but the fever will linger. You'll be tired. It's kind of like the flu is what it's going to feel like. Mm-hmm. And you may go to the doctor and be diagnosed as the flu. it won't be reported as Zika. That's the way. Sometimes that's the way it is with West Nile. You'll get West Nile, go to the doctor, and it's reported as flu, but it's really the West Nile virus. So, and again, that depends on the age of the person, the elderly, the young. If you have any other health complications, that's going to determine, exactly how far it goes.
And how do you treat it?
Zika? Well, it's a virus, so antibiotics won't treat it. I don't think at this time, I don't think there is a treatable for actual Zika. They'll probably treat it as a flu, some kind of antivirus, but antibiotics won't work on it.
So the best thing we can do is prevent the mosquitoes.
The best thing to do is prevent it, and I know that's a big task. That's a big task, especially it being artificial containers. If it was a ditch or slough mosquito, you could drive down every road in Jonesboro and spray the fire out of the ditches, throw larvicide. Every slough and swamp you see, go in there and throw larvicide. But artificial containers are in people's yards, and that's why, again, it comes back to the individual homeowner.
What else? One of the other things that we can do to keep from getting bit by a mosquito are repellents.
Repellent, DEET.
And some
yes.
work better than others.
Yes.
What do you recommend? What do your guys use when you go out? You're bound to be susceptible to getting.
Well, my guys don't actually use repellent unless we're out at the airport loading the airplane, which is at nighttime, and they will tear you up out there. But actually going out to the resident's house, and again, that's because usually it's the Anopheles mosquito, and they're inactive during the day. You can stick your hand, if there's 1 million of them on the side of the wall, you can stick your hand in there, they won't bite you. But you better not go back there after dark. So, but my advice would be to use DEET, wear long sleeve, light colored clothing. They are attracted to carbon monoxide, so if you smoke, you're gonna get a little more bites than anybody else. Possibly, and after dark, especially here in the Delta, after dark, you need to plan your activities accordingly. But again, getting back to the Zika virus, that particular species is only active during the daytime. The good thing about that, I forgot to mention, is its flight range is usually less than a block. So if we can find a concentration of adults and hopefully wipe that concentration out, then we can fan out a block or so and see what we've got. It's not like the rice field mosquito, which has flight range of about 15 miles, and that's without a wind. So, but yeah, so like I said, in the Delta, plan your activities accordingly.
There's some evidence that the Zika virus is not transmitted by animals or to animals, but is transmitted human to human.
Human to human. There is no middleman host. Like I said, I think that's still debatable. I'm not going to say it's not, and I'm going to say it is, but yeah, it will be human to human with no middleman host. So if I'm sick with Zika and she bites me, the male don't bite, but if she bites me, she's infected, she bites you, you have the possibility of getting Zika. Mm-hmm. So that's another a monkey wrench thrown into the equation.
Yeah. It seems to me like when Jonesboro has a mosquito problem, it's worse on the south side of town
Yes.
than the north side of town. Why
Yes.
is that?
Because the rice is concentrated east through south through southwest. Our prevailing wind is south or southwest. And they're gonna blow in on that wind, I guarantee you that. And they're, wherever they find host to feed on, that's where they're gonna stay. And after they get their blood meal, they'll go back to their rice field, they'll relay their eggs, they'll lay eggs, cycle starts all over again. So yes, I agree with you. They are worse on the south end of town. In fact, we spend probably 70% of our time south of the bypass. In the springtime, it's just the opposite. North Jonesboro has sloughs, ditches, swamps and stuff. So the springtime mosquito is up north of Jonesboro. But after we switch over to the rice field mosquito, then it all switches south.
You said your duties run from April 15th to October 15th, and you have a contract with Jonesboro and other cities as well.
Yes, sir, we do. We out of Jonesboro, we run Brooklyn, Paragould, Wynn, and Walnut Ridge.
And
I hope I didn't leave anybody out.
well, the fact that you treat several cities that are close together like that makes some difference too, doesn't it?
Yeah, yes, it does. I don't know if you could call it maybe a buffer zone or not, especially Jonesboro and Brooklyn, because they're only a mile apart right now. They're only 1 mile apart right now. So yeah, each one helps each other, I would say.
Public education is going to be important in mosquito control, period, right?
Right.
And so let's go back through what the homeowner and the business person
Sure.
needs to know
Sure.
to help you control mosquitoes, because that's in the interest of everybody.
That's right. I say this every year. The individual homeowner can do a lot, especially early in the year and late in the year. After the rice field mosquito comes on, there's not much the individual homeowner can do, but just close the doors and hope for the best. But you need to dump. Number one thing would be dump your artificial containers. If you have any low-lying areas, you should get them filled in if you can. Check for leaks under your house. Sometimes you'll have a slow drip and there'll be a puddle of water under the house. That's ideal. That's an ideal place. One thing that's overlooked is your gutters. You have a clogged gutter, that's going to prove that's going to produce the Asian tiger. Swimming pools, abandoned swimming pools are a problem. I don't know what a homeowner could do about that, but drain the water. There's a lot in Jonesboro that are just sitting there, and we'll treat those. We will do that.
Even if they're covered, they can be a problem, can't they?
If they're covered and they have water laying on top of the tarp, yep, they sure can. Just use common sense. I'm just saying anything that holds water will produce mosquitoes. 99% of the time will produce mosquitoes. There's some species that like stagnant, stinky water. There's some species that don't like stagnant, stinky water. They got to have clear water. Some species it don't matter. So yeah, so empty everything. Your tires. If you have tires, you need to get them inside where water cannot get into them, or better yet, haul them off. Get somebody to haul them off. I don't know what the protocol is right now for tires, but you need to get rid of those, because that's a big no-no.
Especially a pile of tires.
Oh, yes. Jonesboro has cleaned up a lot of tires since I came here 20 years ago. There was a lot of tire piles, but they're slowly disappearing. Because if you got 500 tires, that's kind of hard to treat. You're climbing on there, and it's dangerous too. Yeah. But
well, Jim, we appreciate the work that you do, and we certainly wish you the best of luck. It's in all of our interests to be able for you to be successful, and thanks for taking time to be with us today, and thank you for watching this program as well.
Thank you for asking me to be here. Appreciate it.